Hi everyone, I'm Goradia. I'm a Somatic Experiencing practitioner on the non-dual path. It has been a while since I last posted. I had a family member have emergency heart surgery in the last month, and our whole lives got turned upside down, especially this person's life, of course. And we've just been running around trying to help and support the best way we could. We've been spending most of our time in the hospital and then a subacute recovery facility after the heart surgery. And this family member has had to learn how to do things again and just basic functioning. And it's been really difficult. And so that's why I haven't posted. And I also learned some things from this that I thought I could share that may benefit you. Because the situation is requiring ongoing support and care and responsibility and time, I won't be seeing as many clients the remainder of the year. I'll be keeping the practice that I have currently, but I won't be able to take new clients until January. But you can still sign up on the forums, and then you can hold your place in line for a wait list. And if things change, if we do have some openings, if current clients drop off, and I do need to keep working. So if we do have some openings, then I'll be contacting you from that wait list. So it might not be until January, but I've had to decide to do this so that I can manage all the responsibilities that I have that are a bit extra now, which I'm more than happy to do. If you guys do want to support me during this time, feel free to check out the affiliate links I have in the description box below and on my website. I will also go over that at the end of this video. I've got many different products that I've been using for years that I decided I should put on there so that you guys can kind of know how I live. I would credit 50% of my healing to SE and spirituality. And I know that's kind of a small percentage, maybe smaller than what people are expecting. And I would credit 50% to nutritional changes. So there are a lot of things that we can do to protect our physical physiology, and we can't bypass that physical. It's very, very tough. Maybe enlightened people can. So check out on my website different nutritional products, see if they are interesting to you, and I really appreciate that. Okay, so let's get into it. All right, so the first one that I'm going to share is when my family member was in the hospital with high blood pressure fluctuating all over. And this is what caused the heart surgery, putting in a pacemaker. And what happened is afterwards, they were being monitored. And there was a shift in nurses in the hospital. So a new nurse came in, and we looked up at the monitor, and it showed such a high blood pressure that the last time this family member had that high of a blood pressure, they had to go to the ER. And so we said, oh, hey, I'm so glad you're here. Look at the blood pressure. And this nurse who had just arrived said, oh, no, that's fine. That's fine. He just met us. He didn't know us. He just walked in. Wasn't at all concerned. So we were like, oh, no, let's update you about their history. And in the past, this is what happened. And this nurse said, nope, nope, it's fine. And then we said, but it feels like you're not hearing us. And we were so calm about it because we couldn't even expect that this would happen. We thought, oh, well, we just need to clear this up. So we kind of repeated ourselves and, well, this is concerning. Like, can we have the doctor come in, or can we take a look at this? And in this particular hospital, we didn't know. How are we supposed to know? We don't work at the hospital, but at this particular hospital, it was, the blood pressure was written in green lights. And apparently that meant that this was a BP that had been taken before, like the last blood pressure taken. It was not recent. We thought it was a real-time response. But regardless, this nurse didn't even tell us that and just kept on using authority to push us down, where we were concerned about the life of this family member. All this nurse had to do was say, "Oh, let's take the blood pressure right now. That's the past reading." That would have been the easiest thing and the most competent thing to do. And he just refused and kind of got on this power trip. And so, this video is about how to take our power back in these everyday situations, but this first one was a bit of an emergency. And so we just kept on trying to explain it logically and calmly. And then he just kept on showing us that he didn't know the answers to our questions. So that's why he was kind of using authority. When someone can't answer your question with actual substance and facts, and they're compensating by having this sort of top down authority complex, you might question their competency. Because if you have competency, you can just rely on your competency. But if you don't have that, then you might go into some of these power tripping dynamics. So he said a few things that I can't remember now. This is a good 3 weeks ago, but he said some things that kind of made us question whether he was competent or not. And we said, well, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? Just asking questions. And he says, whoa, I just got here. And he said that like 5 times within this conversation. So he's saying, oh, I just got here, meaning I shouldn't have to know all this. And yet I have the authority to tell you, no, that number is fine, regardless of whatever history you tell me, whatever you're asking for help on. And this whole time, we thought this was a real-time response. We still didn't know. Now I know he could have easily just said, okay, let's take your blood pressure. That's not a real-time response, but he didn't. And then he said, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And he just retro walked, tried to walk out of the hospital room. And finally, I said, well, I think I said a few other things before then. I said, can we please talk? Oh, this is what I said before. I said, can we please talk to somebody else that can help us with this? Can we talk to another nurse? Can we have you traded with another nurse, like for this shift? And I said it really calmly. And then he's like, oh no, we're not gonna change shifts just for something minor like this. And it really wasn't minor, not at all. And especially in light of this person's history, having gone to the ER for that exact number of blood pressure and it being there for days the last time it happened. And so finally I said, so he's trying to walk away again, retro. And then finally I said, I disagree. I disagree with you. Who else can we talk to? And that was the first moment he listened to anything I had said. Because if I keep trying to ask him questions or logically talk to somebody who's not giving me logic or competency or accountability back, basically what's happening, he's just using his power to squash me. And if I say nothing, am I tacitly agreeing to that? And when I said, I disagree with you, he stopped. And he was frozen. He paused and I said, I want to speak with your supervisor. I want to speak with someone else because I disagree with you. And that's when we could. And I'm sure we could have figured out how to do that regardless, but he left and he said, okay, well, they're at that desk. And so I didn't let him have that power over me that he tried to. And if he was saying reasonable things and if he was demonstrating basic care and competency and willing to hear more information, then we never would have even had to go there. But those things were all not in place. There's that famous saying, I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. But this person didn't have the care or the knowing. They didn't demonstrate either of those things. So why should I have to allow my family member to be put at risk for that? And then his supervisor came in and she was appalled and she said, I'm going to write a report. Like, that is not okay. And we got the blood pressure measured, and, luckily it had come down, but we would have had to adjust the medication. So I will just pause it here and just say that please know you can always disagree when someone behaves this way. We don't have to be violent or angry or anything. You can just say, I disagree. And you're taking that power back to disagree. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing with somebody. Someone can't own you. And so the stakes were so high in that situation that it was more than reasonable. But you can even do this for low stakes things. Be yourself, own your reality, own your perception. Yeah, we're open to other people's, but if they can't demonstrate it in a reasonable way, you don't have to hand over your perception, your reality, your family member's life because it's awkward. Let it be awkward. That's the second tip, okay? First tip, I disagree. Say it whenever you want, whenever you need to. Second tip, let it be awkward. You've got to be able to be with awkward and uncomfortable emotions to let the moment be awkward. That's another way you take your power back. And so if that person can't be with awkwardness, that's their issue. You're not trying to hurt them. You're not using these techniques for evil. You're using them when they're appropriate, when they're the right thing to do. So if you can let it be awkward and you can tolerate, if you've got the capacity to manage that awkwardness, you can advocate for yourself. If you're trained to always take care of the other person's emotions before your own, you won't be able to handle that awkwardness. You will be far more attuned to the other person's expressions, reactions, and comfort over what is the right thing to do. It's not even about your comfort over the other person's. It's just, is this the right thing to do? Is this the reasonable course of action? So that's tip number 2. So the third one, we're going to get into less severe examples. The third one is when you're feeling a certain way. Okay, if you're feeling sad, even in your own mind, you can take your power back. First of all, there's nothing wrong with feeling sad, of course, but you can take away your own power by saying, I'm a sad person. I'm so sad. And that has a very different ring than I'm experiencing sadness. I'm feeling sadness. Just that little shift in how you describe your experience is a huge opening. It's a huge space between you and the experience. So you acknowledge this is my experience, but I'm the experiencer. But when you say I'm a sad person, you're making the experience your identity. When you're making your experience who you are, your identity, then we don't have any choice. We're just stuck. Because an identity doesn't change. The identity of who we are doesn't change. Experiences come and go. Who we are stays the same. So it's important to have that awareness of that's my experience and I'm the one experiencing it so that it has a chance to move and flow according with life. That's tip number 3. Tip number 4. This one might surprise you all a bit. So about 3 months ago, I had to take my car in. It's having all these problems. It's getting old. And I'd gone so many times. I had so many repairs this year. And so I went in again. I was like, what's wrong with it this time? And I had left it there, and they told me we'll be done in a couple of hours. And I think something they were doing, like an oil change, and then something else that we knew was wrong with it, but then they were going to look into if something else was wrong with it that we couldn't figure out. So after a couple hours, I came back and I said, well, you guys said a couple hours, so I got groceries, and now my groceries are going to spoil. Like, would it be okay if I just took the car and the groceries since you guys are on lunch anyway, and then I'll bring it back in 30 minutes? And he's like, yeah, no problem. He was such a nice guy. And then he said, before I left, he said, so we did the other stuff that you knew. And he said, but we don't know what's wrong with your car yet. And I said, okay, all right, thanks for letting me know. I'll bring it back. Okay, so no issue so far. So I bring it back, and a different guy is at the front desk than the first one. And I can read people really well, you guys. Like, I'm not saying it's perfect. It's not. Like, you want to double check these things with your experience. But I have a pretty good read emotionally on people if they're being honest or not, and kind of what their priority is. If it's like integrity, honesty, truth, or if it's like kind of this slimy used car salesman kind of vibe. Not that all used car salesmen are, but you guys know the stereotype, what I'm talking about. So the second person that had that vibe, and I had talked to him earlier in the day too, but so he's like, okay, well, we know what's wrong with your car. It's this, this, and this. And I said, oh, but right before I left, and I was like really calm and I was in a great mood, just really relaxed. And I was like, oh, but I talked to the guy there and I saw him back in the shop. And I said, I talked to him. And right before I left, he said, you guys didn't know. So I had the car since then and I'm bringing it back. And how would you guys know now what's wrong with it? And he goes, oh, well, it's this, this, and this, because basically, because I say so. Like he didn't, again, he didn't demonstrate the competency or the care, neither of those. And I said, well, can you tell me more about that? Because how would you guys know that if he says this and then like what happened in the break where my car wasn't here that you suddenly knew what it was? And very calmly said like that. And so he raised his voice at me. I mean, raised it quite a bit. It was not subtle. It was not just quite a bit. I told you it's this, 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 and this. So again, he's trying to pull authority over me. And he told me it would cost $1,000. Okay, so he thinks I'm supposed to give him $1,000 for my car without knowing what is actually wrong with it and without questioning him. And I said, well, so I responded really calmly again. I did not match his tone or frequency or anything. I'm good at disarming people. Okay, so I was like, okay, well, but I'm gonna pay $1,000, and I just want to feel like I understand what's wrong with the car and that how you guys came to that conclusion. And again, he raised his voice at me, and this time he said, I am the manager here. And so he won't answer the competency question. He won't show me. All the other guys there were so great. They would talk to me and explain things. And you guys, believe me, I've never said anything like this in my life. And I don't think it came from my ego. Maybe it did. You guys feel free to disagree, but I was in such a calm place. And what came out of my mouth was, you're the manager. That's amazing. No, I said, wow, you're the manager. That's amazing. And right before I had said that, I forgot to tell you guys, I had asked him, I said, can I please talk to him? He's the guy who told me you guys didn't know. And that's when he said, I'm the manager. And so I said that, wow, you're the manager. That's amazing. And that took his power away. And immediately he just gave up. I mean, he just folded, like you can't believe. Like it was just a huff and puff demonstration. And he went got that guy so I could talk to him. And I want to explain why that worked. And I had no agenda in my mind. See, the thing is, and my teacher Ryan talks about this a lot. He says people have this caricature idea in their mind of what a spiritual person should look like. And they think it should be someone who always talks like this and they're always so calm. If I meet someone like that, I mean, that's fine if that's really how they are, but I wonder, okay, I wonder if it's an act, because you can have all sorts of emotions while being enlightened. I'm not enlightened yet. I've never claimed that. But I'm saying, even if I were, even if someone was, you hear of these teachers that they can be stern while not having attachment. They're just trying to help the student. Or if somebody comes and breaks in my house, I can say, "Get out of my house." And it doesn't necessarily mean it's from ego. You see? Because we have to respond to these different situations as they arise, and we have to respond to them effectively. And we're not hurting anybody. We're not trying to use power in an inappropriate way over other people in a way that's exploitative. We're trying to meet the situation. If someone's trying to steal a child, kidnap a child right in front of me, you best believe I'm going to do everything I can. Scream, yell, hit. I'll do that to save a child. That doesn't mean I'm not spiritual. So I'm just trying to flesh this out a little bit. And so my teacher says that sometimes he'll do things out of character on purpose just to like disprove that in other people's minds that like, oh, if you're spiritual, you have to behave this certain way. So being on this path is really about not if you get triggered or not, but how quickly you can let go of those triggers. That's a whole different video. I'll do that in the future because if a bear is going to eat you or attack you, you hope your nervous system is triggered and that you have a fight or flight reaction, right? But the longer you stay there, then that's what's limiting our freedom. And there's no blame with that. We work through that. We work through the PTSD, but an enlightened person would be able to drop it because they've done that level of work and detachment. So the weird thing is when this happened, I didn't even feel triggered. After I said that, I was like, I believe I said that. It was like my mind was so calm, and yet this came up. Maybe I was an ego trigger that I hadn't seen yet. That's possible too. That can happen. Or it just something arose within me so out of character of my personality to meet the situation, and it totally worked. And then that the tech came that I talked to earlier, who was really nice. And he's like, "Oh, okay, this is what happened." And this is what the first guy could have said. And so the second he goes, "Oh, what happened actually? So when you left, we spoke, and then he had looked at it right before I gave you the keys back, and I didn't know that, and then we talked about it." So he could have just said that, but he was more interested in beating someone down with his authority so that he wouldn't feel insecure because I was trying to get information that might have felt threatening to him, even though it's my right and it's my money and it's my car. And it was said really nicely. And I wondered about that. And I wondered if that would happen if I was a man, if I would be treated in that same way. So I also like to think that I kind of set a precedent for treating other women properly in a setting like that. But I don't know. These are just stories, these are ideas. I don't really know. But what's funny is when someone comes huffing and puffing like that, that person is likely very insecure because you don't have to present that way if you're not. You can just have a question or you can just have a dialogue or a question that's based in the truth, the facts, what happened. Yeah, we're just trying to work together. Like Socrates says, we're just trying to work together to figure out what the truth is. It's not a us versus them, a you versus me. It's just people being reasonable. And so when that guy came back and told me that, and I gave him the benefit of the doubt, that guy seemed like he wouldn't lie to me. He seemed really reasonable. And I was like, okay, well, thanks for letting me know. I just wanted to hear it from you. And I did let them work on my car. And then another guy who worked there who was on his lunch break, but he was sitting right there. So he saw the whole thing and he's like, I saw that. And he was such a good guy too. He's like, let me explain to you everything. And he just explained everything to me and it was so kind. And so anyway, people come at these situations with their own stuff, right? And they project their own stuff. So that guy must have been having a bad day. But I want to explain to you why this worked. Okay, because he's trying to establish this authority over me. So I gave his ego the stroke it was asking for. I didn't do any of this consciously. I only in hindsight am I like, what? Oh, that's what happened. I stroked his ego. I did it in a sarcastic way, But it's like, oh, that's what you here, you can have that. Now, can we get back to talking about my car and what really happened here? So I stroked it. So then he had nothing he could do because when he says that, he's asking for the ego stroke. He's asking for the authority. So I gave it to him while kind of mocking him, like, well, like I know this is what you want. Here you go. Can we get back to the situation at hand now? And he just folded. So in situations like this where people are behaving like this, I want you all to know that you may have more power than you think you do. Okay, so that's number 4. You're just you're giving the ego stroke, but you're not really giving it. You're basically calling it out. I know that you want an ego stroke here. I know you want power. I see that you want that. So here you go. This is what you want, but it's silly because I don't owe you $1,000 and an ego stroke. And so even if that didn't work, number 5, tip number 5, I could have just walked away. I don't have to give them $1,000 and have my car fixed. I could just remove my presence from a situation. We almost always have that power unless someone is holding us down by force. Sometimes there's other constraints too, financial constraints and keeping a job. And I understand there's a lot of situations, but most of the time we can just simply remove ourselves from a situation where we're not being respected or treated in a reasonable way. And you don't want to think that you owe somebody something because they huff and puff and get angry and try to have this artificial dominance over you. That's what anger is. It's a false sense of power because someone feels powerless. So they try to get power over others by doing that so that they don't feel the feeling of powerlessness. But if you're okay feeling the feeling of powerlessness, it's a hard one. That's probably one of the hardest ones out of all of them. We build up to that one in the sessions. I wouldn't do that alone unless you're forced to and it comes up. So when you're okay with feeling the feeling of powerlessness, you actually have a lot of power because you're not on the hook every time that feeling comes up and you have to huff and puff and do things that you regret in hindsight. You can just be with that feeling and regulate it. Being with it is regulating it, allowing it to do what it needs to do without ego getting in the way. That's a big one to learn how to regulate. So I wouldn't just jump right in, or you could ask your body, just show me the top 10% of this. I can't handle all of it. You can do it in small pieces like that. But once you can do that, you can make sound decisions in situations that would have otherwise been distressing. And you don't need to kind of punch back at people. So I want to end with this powerlessness. I think that's number 6, being okay with the powerlessness. Because the first example I gave you was an emergency situation. The rest of the examples I gave you were just everyday examples. They're not emergencies usually. Well, I mean, I guess you could be so depressed that you feel, like it's intolerable or and then you might say, I am sad, that's who I am, and you get some space, right? No, that's actually just how I'm feeling, that's what I'm experiencing. So some of those could be more severe situations, but these last few weeks with the hurricanes happening in the southeast of the US, my heart just breaks. I'm just watching these videos and the level of suffering and I feel like somebody there could watch this video and be like, Nina, like these are like the most easiest things you've talked about. Like, what about somebody in our situation where you really feel totally powerless? And I can't even imagine the amount of pain that you're in right now, the level of loss. And this is a situation of feeling powerlessness. And it's not something that usually can be done the way that I've explained the previous 5, where you're kind of looking at it. You're kind of looking at something and you're meeting it. When you are in an emergency situation, like I don't even know who it is, but a teacher, an old teacher of mine told me about another teacher. I didn't ever know the name, that they were in the military and in a battle situation, and the shots came, and I don't think they got hit, but it was so like life threatening that this person completely went into the experience. So it's not being present with the experience and being the watcher, and then it regulates and it comes off you, and you know who you are, and you're not the experience. You go directly in. And this person had an awakening experience in that situation. There are situations where people have gone through tragedies and they've had awakening experiences, because when you go directly in, it's a different way to embody and be in that situation. So, with powerlessness, there are such extreme examples that people can be experiencing with this. And what I've shared here is mostly for everyday examples. I know the first one was an emergency situation, but I don't want to make light of the extreme situations that people are in right now and feeling powerless. Situations like this obviously need so much more help, physically, emotionally. I encourage you guys to help any way you can in that situation, but I don't want to pretend that these few tips that I've given are going to help in a situation like that. So much more is needed there. I feel so much compassion for the people that are going through this. And this video is more for the everyday stuff. So I do have a few other videos on powerlessness that I will link here. And if you guys want to support me with the nutrition and check out my affiliate links and my website, I'm going to pull that up here so you can see. Okay, so this is my resources page. Got the link up here on the resources tab, and I've been slowly adding to this as I've been able to, but there are functional lab tests that you can order through Vibrant Wellness that can measure your total toxin burden. There's things you can order like the organic acids test, mycotoxins, heavy metals, environmental toxins, PFAS. So that is a resource. You can order these directly through the store here, and you can work with a practitioner. Starting in January and February of next year, I will be working with people on detoxing as I'm getting certified in health coaching. Right now, these are affiliate links. You can work with your practitioner. And nutrition and detox products here. So some of my favorite companies are Cellcore Biosciences, which helps with removal of microplastics in our body. We eat many credit cards worth of microplastics, I've heard, per year. So this one is my favorite. It helps to donate electrons as well if you're having energy issues. Of course, talk to your practitioner. This helps support the liver. I'll make future videos going over these things in more detail, and I'm still kind of building these sites, but things that can help with mood, that just kind of take the stress off, with chamomile and lavender and things like this, and detox, parasites, binding glyphosate, binding heavy metals. This will even pull glyphosate out of the tight junctions in the small intestine, different parts of the body. This one is the one that binds to microplastics. This will bind to radiation. Global Healing is another one of my absolute favorites, and I'm still building this. I'm going to put a code here. You can get 15% off from them, and they are just the highest frequency of products that you can get. And you guys know I've been a PT for 22 years now, and so on my PT page, so also you can look under the More Services tab. These are some of the products I recommend the most to people. This is for leveling out the seat pan in a car so that it allows you to sit up straight. Pretty much it's only for short people because it'll raise you 3 inches in the car. So if your head is already close to the ceiling, it's not going to work, but it can relieve back and neck pain from sitting slumped in the way that the car is set up. Same thing here. This is excellent for the car or indoors. So these are kind of the go-to preventative products I've used, infrared mat. And then I have all these at home and thought I would recommend them to you. There's a few here I don't have, but I do recommend fidget toys, and I loved the quotes on this. I thought they were really good. But I do have just about every single one of these others. So that's there. And then I'm also a yoga instructor, and there are different yoga products that I recommend. I'm going to start putting all of my non-dual books on here. I haven't done this yet, but if you're interested in what books I have on my bookshelf, you can come here. Oh yeah, the rest of them on the resource page is, of course, the earthing materials and EMF protection. So these are all, I have all these. They are amazing. For the bone, this is the cotton clothing without dyes, without chemicals. I use all this. Coffee, olive oil, weighted blankets. I haven't bought this one yet, so I don't have this one myself, but this would be the next one that I would buy because it's got organic cotton fabrics. So there are discount codes on all of these things. And then here, I'm going to eventually put my SE books, my trauma books that I have. I've started with that, but just links to those if you want to check those out, what's on my bookshelf and what's on my list to get, so we can empower ourselves not only with our health, but just through the knowledge of learning about trauma, nutrition, non-duality, all of those things. And with non-duality, eventually it's that there is no one left to have the power. It's not a power over anyone, it's just a power over yourself. It's the power to discern, power to not react, to respond. And sometimes those responses are going to be intense, and it doesn't mean that it's not okay and that it was a reaction. And sometimes we make mistakes. That's okay too. So be easy with yourself, be gentle with yourself along the way. Feel free to comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have some other tips yourself. And so I will continue this Taking the Power Back series with the next few videos. And then we will get into a lot of videos about the freeze response, which I have a lot of great ideas to share with you. So thanks everyone for watching. Take care. I'll see you next time.